Hey, we've covered a lot of games over the many years here at gameranx. The Before You Buy review first impression series, I started that over 10 years ago now, when I made a video on Batman Arkham Knight. Since then, Before You Buy has gone on to evolve beyond just me with, as you probably know, Falcon and our writer Eric also covering games. But even still, we're a really small team, and we can't cover everything. And plenty of games miss getting the Before You Buy treatment or even inclusion in one of our top 10 lists. So recently we all got together and came up with a collective list of games we at gameranx all regret missing in our coverage. It's me, Jake Baldino, and today we've got 10 cool games, so let's get started off with number 10. JDM, or Japanese Drift Master. This ambitious indie racer really is punching pretty far above its weight class. Rather than keeping things simple, it's actually nothing less than like a full-on open-world racing game experience on a budget. What's unique about it is the focus on drifting. The title kind of gave that one away, but drifting is so much more than a way to get around corners in this game. It's an arcade racer with simple mechanics, but the drifting is in-depth and in contrast to most racing games where the objective is to be first to finish a race. Often your only goal in JDM is to get the highest score by stringing together drifts without interrupting the combo. If that doesn't feel like an early 2000s racing game throwback, I don't know what is. Keeping a combo going is a huge part of the game, which makes it feel almost like this hybrid racing game, extreme sports game. Just, swap out the usual trick mechanics of a skateboard game with car drifting. It's actually a refreshing take on the genre, and while there are plenty of standard race events, it's still a racing game. The drifting is what makes this game feel so unique, and it's got forgiving, exaggerated driving mechanics that are easy to get used to, fun to master, and the drifting adds an element of complexity you don't usually see in an arcade racer. This game strongly encourages you to keep a drift combo going without messing up. It's essential for winning a lot of events, so you can't just hold down the acceleration and hope for the best. If you're slamming into the sides of the road constantly, then you're gonna lose. This isn't Burnout. And if you go into it thinking that it's just kind of like a Japanese flavored Need for Speed or something, then you might end up getting frustrated. It is heavily inspired by that stuff, but it is more than that. And it's got great presentation for an indie game too. The open world is big and varied, and the cars look pretty great. It's not gonna fool you into thinking it's like the next massive budget Forza Horizon or anything, but it looks a lot better than it has any right to, especially for the asking price of just 25 bucks. Sure, it's got some flaws, it's got some jank here and there, but you can just feel the passion from the development team in this one. Next at number 9, Jurassic World Evolution 3. This third entry is where they finally put it all together to make a legitimately great Jurassic Park building game. The first game was a good start, but bare bones and lacking in-depth stuff for a management game, and while the second one improved on the first by a lot, it was still missing a lot of the complexity and challenge that makes the best management games and city builders so addictive. With this third game, though, they finally brought everything together, introducing breeding and family mechanics from their Project Zoo games to add some real depth to the dinosaur park builder. Plus, it's got baby dinosaurs, which is kind of like the icing on the cake. Baby dinosaurs are cool. The game looks incredible, too. That's something that's always been a strong part of this series, really, but this game in particular is stunningly detailed and looks just as good zoomed in as it does from the bird's eye view. Of course, the dinosaurs look fantastic because that's what we're all here to see. But the park building part looks great too, and the addition of more customization elements from Frontier Development's other games really lets you build the park that you actually want. It's a game that you can make as difficult or as casual as you want.
Delivery successful. Now, we better make sure those dinosaurs are loving their new home. I mean, I'm sure they are, but I pride myself on being a good host. Or at least a passable one.
They could certainly be more comfortable here. Balancing comfort between multiple species can be a challenge, but one worth overcoming.
You could treat it like the Planet Coaster games and just make the most impressive park possible, or you can play it like a hardcore simulation game, and I think there's a lot of fun to be had in either direction you go in. The campaign mode is legitimately excellent here too, not just as a tutorial, but as a fun game in its own right. Yeah, it's missing some dinos from the previous game and a few features that got added in with expansions, but overall this is easily the best Jurassic World evolution game. It's the most full-fledged. It smartly builds on the previous ones to make the closest thing to the ideal Jurassic Park simulator. Look, if the movies aren't doing it for you anymore, the game certainly will. Next at number 8, Deltarune Chapter 3 and 4. Released right around the time of the Switch 2, the actual paid version of Deltarune still isn't really a finished game. The first 2 chapters were free. Then we got chapters 3 and 4 bundled together as a single package, but there's still 3 chapters out of a total of 7 yet to be released. So it's kind of difficult to review this thing as a full package. Still, just chapters 3 and 4 alone are longer than the entirety of Toby Fox's previous game, Undertale. So there is still a lot to chew on here. It's unsurprisingly excellent. Chapter 3 and 4 are, if anything, a step up from the last ones. There's so much creativity and humor packed into these chapters. The gameplay is even more refined and clever, and the story is finally really starting to come together into something. I don't know exactly what, but they're definitely building to something here. It's basically Undertale, but bigger and more ambitious, and that's why it's taking so long to come out. It looks basic, but in Chapter 3 alone, there are multiple shifts in gameplay styles and graphical styles, many mini-games and twists on the usual gameplay formula, and the usual cavalcade of like weird characters and amusing situations mixed with melancholy that these games have really always excelled at. Chapter 4 takes things into a more dramatic direction, actually like a lot more dramatic than these games have ever even gotten to in the past, but that spark of ingenuity and creativity is always there, and it's still got a lot of funny stuff going on too. Deltarune still isn't finished yet, but it just keeps getting better with each new episode. And Toby Fox keeps topping himself with the music too. Look, haters aren't going to be won over by any of this because it's really just the same type of thing from Undertale turned up to 11. But for most people, is that really a bad thing? There are a lot of imitators out there, but there's nobody out there doing it quite like Toby Fox is with Deltarune. Now at number 7, Dinkum. This is just about the closest thing to getting Animal Crossing on PC, and while it might be easy to dismiss it as a simple clone of that popular Nintendo franchise, it's got like a really unique charm all its own that makes it stand out. You can immediately see the Animal Crossing inspirations with this one, but that's not all it is. It's also got a lot of like Don't Starve DNA in there by adding a simple bit of survival game DNA into it. The whole thing is very Australian as well, from like the name to the environment to the characters, so it only makes sense to add an element of danger to the island management. You know, it's the continent where everything wants to kill you. It's like spiders and snakes. So look, you're not just clearing out your little island and building up a town, you're also contending with dangerous critters and keeping your stamina in check. It's a pretty simple alteration to the Animal Crossing formula that just like really freaking works. This is a game with a lot to keep you busy. There's farming, fishing, hunting, and mining, and plenty of foraging to do while you build up your little town. And once you start getting people in, there's a lot of options for decorating your village and just making it feel like your own. It's not especially innovative, but it's very well made, and the Australian flavor kind of gives it really good charm. Now at number 6, Mycopunk. It's got the style of Risk of Rain, the lobby from Deep Rock Galactic, and missions right out of Helldivers, with a little Borderlands style to the 4 heroes you can choose to play as, with all these unique little abilities mapped to the left and right buttons. It's a game with many influences, but there's nothing else quite like it. It's just a really incredibly fun co-op shooter where you pick from a pretty solid variety of missions and shoot everything in sight with like a variety of these cool, weird, fun weapons. The enemies are especially unique. They're these random assortments of stuff stuck to a core. What they're capable of is entirely dependent on the weapons and random objects they've got attached to them, kind of like a Katamari. It's an incredibly chaotic game, by yourself or with other players, but the community is actually really friendly, and the gameplay pretty forgiving as far as these things go. If you die, then your parts scatter, and if your allies are able to bring your separated bits back together, then you can come back to life for free. It's one of the many clever little touches that makes this game feel unique among its co-op PvE shooter peers. There's already a solid variety to the missions and objectives, even though the game is still technically in early access. And while some are more fun than others, the game is just a good time with a group. By yourself, it's kind of a drag. I'd compare it to something kind of like playing Helldivers 2 by yourself. The game isn't built for it, and it's just not that much fun solo. But if you got a few people to play with, then it's extremely fun. With friends or just randoms, it's a good time. The community is welcoming and easygoing, and there still seems to be a pretty active community around the game. This one really caught us by surprise with just how much we liked it. Next at number 5, R.E.P.O. This unassuming $10 indie released into early access on Steam back in February, and it went on to be a pretty big unexpected hit. It's essentially Lethal Company by way of Roblox, so expect a lot of, weird, awkward attempts at humor and scary stuff that's not even remotely scary to somebody with a fully developed brain. It's a stupid game, and I was really ready to dismiss it entirely at first, but the more we all messed around with it, the more it got its hooks at us. It's a very well-made game that takes what Lethal Company started and runs with it. This game has more variety and a whole hell of a lot of monsters in that game, and it's still in early access, so they're not even done adding this stuff yet. Now, the core gameplay is simple. You enter these randomly generated levels, either solo or with up to 4 players, and you need to explore these randomly generated environments and collect as much loot as possible before you escape. You need to be careful though, because there are like these deadly monsters walking around that want you dead, and there's a metric ton of different ones, and they all have to be dealt with in different ways. So far, so Lethal Company, right? The big difference is the comedy angle. And while the actual in-game attempts at humor, you can argue are kind of lame, there's still a lot of possibilities for player-generated laughs that actually work. Like, you can have fun with your friends, you can get some laughs. The game is heavily physics-based, and that's what really makes it stand out. A lot of the stuff you're meant to retrieve can be broken if you drop it or swing it around too quickly. And the physics on display here actually feel really good and add a sense of physicality to what you'll be doing, some tangible aspect to what you're doing in a way that you don't usually see in these types of games. It also allows for some incredible bumbling around like few games can really manage. And because each level is so quick, it doesn't really matter if you screw up spectacularly, because you're often gonna, and it's funny. This is one of those games that basically requires some friends to play with, because solo, it's just kind of a drag, but it's cheap. The cooperative aspect is actually fun, and the game is getting consistently updated. So it's easy to recommend for anyone looking for something stupid to mess around with friends. Now at number 4, Grounded 2. It's more grounded. I mean, this promises to be a bigger, more varied version of Obsidian's kind of nostalgia-tinged Honey, I Shrunk the Kids style survival game. And while there is promise here, it's still kind of rough around the edges. This game came out around the end of July, but our review now would look pretty much the same as our review back then if we did it, as the game is still technically messy 4 months later. They're really going hard on trying to make this a graphics showcase, but it is not not really that well optimized. Even on a pretty powerful PC here, it struggled for us. The inconsistent online performance, as well as like all these copious technical bugs, it's a tough one to recommend, but it's not one that we want to completely write off, because Obsidian has proven themselves with the first game's early access launch. They were consistent with updates, responding pretty well to fan feedback, and the final game ended up being excellent. So we expect that they'll do that again with the sequel, but as of right now, it's just not there yet. Still, we feel like we kind of missed the boat on the original Grounded, and that found a community, and we felt like by that point, we really should have covered that game, and it seems like potentially the same is going to happen with Grounded 2. It's actually been one of our more requested before you buy videos in recent years, along with a few other ones that we'll mention towards the end of this list, but yeah, Grounded 2 definitely has potential. Obsidian, we still know, can make a great game. And the concept, even from Grounded 1, is still wholly unique. You don't see this type of thing in video games.
Ugh, these damn mites always jumping in your face. I didn't miss them at all.
Science!
My science? I like it raw.
Now down at number 3, we can't forget to mention the other unexpected indie hit of the year about comedy co-op. It's Peak. Like, that's the name of the game. This one is even cheaper than R.E.P.O. It's only $8 and was never meant to be this big evolving game. From everything that we've read, the developers at AgroCrab threw this thing together for fun between their bigger projects, and its out of nowhere success caught even them by surprise. The story of indies in 2025 seems to be co-op games that wouldn't look out of place in Roblox, if not in style, then in content. But I don't want to undersell Peak too much, because it's actually a pretty amusing game. I think it would be difficult to give this one the full before you buy treatment, because there really isn't that much to it. You crash land on a randomly generated deserted island, and you've got to climb to survive. The higher you go, the more difficult the climb becomes. But let me tell you, it already starts off pretty hard. This is one of those games that's less about actually finishing it, because it's practically impossible. Even with a team of 4 working together, it can all fall apart very quickly. But like, it's about the journey. Players can give their buddies boosts, and this ends up being an essential feature if you want any hope of actually reaching the peak. And even then, the randomly generated terrain will make your journey to the top as chaotic and hellish and unexpected as possible. It is an incredibly frustrating game by design, but it still manages to be weirdly addictive despite that. Once again, this is a game best played with friends, not with random players online, and definitely not solo. It's clearly built around cooperation, and that's where the game shines. Just don't go in expecting a serious climbing sim. It's a game that's more about creating like these funny failures than it is about giving you an actual fair challenge. And if you go into it with that expectation, then Peak can be a really fun kind of time waster, but in a good way. Now down at number 2, another one we regret not covering because a lot of people asked us about it and we just didn't get around to it. It's Digimon Story Time Stranger. Now look, we don't usually cover that many JRPGs on this channel. A lot of great ones tend to get passed over when there are bigger, more, I guess, YouTube algorithm friendly games coming out at the same time. Such was the fate of this one. A game that was sandwiched between Ghost of Yotei releasing and Battlefield 6. We just couldn't get around to it. It didn't stand a chance, which is a shame because this would have been a fun game to talk about. If not at release, then at least around the time of Pokemon Legends ZA. At the time, there were a lot of people comparing the two games. It's inevitable considering the perception of the two series as being rivals with one another, or at least they used to be. It's also an interesting situation where for many people, the games that are usually thought of as secondary are the better games this year. It happened with Sonic Racing Crossroads and it happened with Digimon Story Time Stranger. A lot of people like this one way more than Pokemon this year. For all of Pokemon Legends ZA's perceived failings, we don't really think it has all that much in common with Time Stranger. The Digimon Stories games have always had more in common with the Persona series. That's somehow even more true with Time Stranger. They really lean in on the Persona stuff this time around. It feels less like a reference or an homage and more like they're just ripping those games off at times. It's pretty blatant. But there is enough here that's unique and fun that like it just stands up on its own. And to be clear here, we like the Digimon Stories games. Some of us here, is more of like a breezy, easygoing alternative to a Persona. We enjoy how these games focus more on evolving your creatures than capturing them. You're constantly unlocking new forms for your Digimon, and the many varied and weird creature designs are just fun to discover. I think this is without a doubt one of the better, best designed, most entertaining Digimon story games so far, and while it still might not hold up to scrutiny against the thing it's closely imitating, it's still a really fun RPG that does right by Digimon fans.
It is time! Transcendent Sword!
Now at number 1, out of the 6 top-rated games of 2025, this one, Blueprints, is the only one we didn't do a before you buy for. So of course it's got to be on this list. It's a game we've already talked about extensively in other list videos, so it's not like it's been completely ignored by us, but it did pass us by when it released back in April. This roguelike puzzle game is clearly inspired by first-person puzzle games like The Witness, but the unique thing it brings to the table is randomization. You're not just doing puzzles in a straightforward static environment. The game is constantly changing with each run. That adds an extra layer of complication to the game's many secrets. It's one of those games that comes off like a pretty straightforward roguelike at first, but the deeper you get into it, the more complex and layered the entire world becomes. Reaching the fabled Room 45 is just the start with this game. The rabbit hole here goes so much deeper than you could possibly even imagine when you're starting out. The depth and complexity of the puzzle design is incredibly impressive, but the roguelike elements are like a double-edged sword. It's great when the solutions come naturally. The randomization makes putting pieces together to solve a particularly complex puzzle feel very rewarding, and some of the ways the game plays around with the roguelike formula in unexpected ways is extremely clever, but when you're in the mercy of the random numbers generator and it just doesn't give you the things you need, then it sucks. It's hard. There's a reason why so many puzzle games don't go this route. They're extremely deterministic because introducing an element of chance is often more frustrating than fun. It's a bold gamble for the developers to go the roguelike route with this one, but ultimately, we're not sure if it's quite a success. At first, the randomization is frustrating, then at hour 50, it's actually not so bad. You feel like you're figuring things out and finding ways to make things work to your advantage, and then by hour 100, you're back to thinking that the randomization sucks again. So it's like a love-hate relationship, but either way, it's a great game. It's one that some of us here on the team have sunk many, many hours into it. Even if we're still a little torn how exactly we feel about it, we love it, we hate it, ultimately, we still love it, and it is incredibly unique. We don't regret playing it. Those are 10 games, but we have one more we have to cram in. It's this one here. Speaking of games that add roguelike elements to well-established genres, Absalom. It's a beat 'em up with a twist. It's Streets of Rage meets Hades. And while we're not always crazy about roguelites like 100% at a time, this game uses all those elements just about perfectly. What makes it work so well is that the actual core gameplay would just work as well if it wasn't a roguelike. The added randomization just adds more value to the game and ultimately makes it a much bigger and more complex game than your average beat 'em up. Usually, you can wrap up one of these types of games in like what, maybe 40, 50 minutes, maybe a few hours if you're talking something like TMNT Shredder's Revenge, but Absalom here is so much longer. With many branching paths to mix things up and introduce new challenges and enemies, the variety here is just fantastic. And the way the game slowly reveals itself to the player, becoming bigger and bigger as you attempt runs and uncover secrets and complete little side quests that encourage you to go in new directions and take on new challenges, it's just fantastic. The actual world here isn't fully randomized. Depending on the path you take, you'll always go to the same areas and fight the same bosses, but the layouts and enemy encounters do get mixed up, as well as the rewards you'll find. So there's enough deterministic elements here to make your choices matter, but enough randomization to keep each run exciting. It's a beat 'em up with some real value, and it's just incredibly fun to just play. Even if you end up dying before the end, you're always making progress even on failed attempts. You get many permanent upgrades that make things easier, and depending on the upgrades you unlock in a run, it's also possible to just get ridiculously overpowered. It can still be pretty merciless at times, but just as often, it's extremely forgiving. The game is designed to be fun above all else, and while it's still not the best beat 'em up ever, there are some rough edges and bugs here that negatively affect the experience. It's still one of our favorite games of the year. If you got some friends and you like beat 'em ups, then this is a no-brainer. Try Absalom. But again, those are 10 games we missed covering in other videos. Whether it was a top 10 and we missed it on the list, or we didn't do a before you buy for it because we're a small team, these are 10 games that are still worth talking about in some shape or form. If you like this video, clicking the like button helps us out. We really, really appreciate it. Let us know in the comments any games we missed that we should talk about, because we can make a lot of these videos talking about things we missed. Hit us up. If you like this video, clicking the like button helps us out. We really appreciate that. And if you're new, consider subscribing, maybe hitting that notification bell, because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.